Good morning and welcome to IT Infrastructure Session. I am Thanasak Huntagroon, co-founder and managing director from Faquet Insurtech. I have two guests today and we have Mr. Supagit Yongwittiyasathit and Mr. Wasin Pichayasathit. Mr. Supagit is a Chief Executive Officer and Chief Technology Officer, and he is from Fusion Solution, and his main job is to adapt new technology to his company and 5 other subsidiaries in Thailand and overseas. He has an experience in designing and installing IT system more than 15 years, including in finance, retail, production, and lately his company Fusion Solution has just won Microsoft's Partner of the Year. And Mr. Wasin, he has more than 10 years of experience in digital transformation, technology innovation, and business services. And please welcome our guests. Good morning. Good morning. And thank you so much for joining us in today's session. I actually have never met both of you in person, but I can see that this session will be quite something, including your experience. And can I start with the first question? And let's take about 35 minutes. And then we will continue with Q&A after that. Okay, so let us start with the first question. In your experience, in your company and also working with your clients, at present, what is the current system arrangement, and do we have any system in SaaS, PaaS, or any other IS infrastructure? And as an IT system provider, how can the person in charge make a call, and how can we make sure that the system can be connected, including through API or SFTP, or with conciliation, for example? Mr. Wasin, would you like to go first? All right. In my experience, in many organizations, I found that for private corporations, they have used a lot of technology, especially using software as a service or infrastructure as a service. But on the other hand, the public sector mostly work on on-premise systems. And I believe that there are many factors, including the policy and the regulations, and there are certain limitations for the government agencies, and they also have limited time frame for their work in each organization. That's what I can see. Regulations, you mean the regulator prefer the public agency to have their on-premise system for IT infrastructure? Yes, they are pretty much concerned using other platform or external platform because they are concerned about security, and there are many policies and regulations. So technically, they need to keep their data within the country or within their organization only. Maybe you can share with us a bit more comparison, because when you think about infrastructure or software as a service, how is it insecure? I mean, is it more secure or not? Can you repeat the question again? I mean, is it less secure, or I mean, comparing with on-premise in terms of security, because that was the concern, right? And maybe is it, I don't know if I can ask the right question. Is it the right concern? It is because of the legacy policy and also the leadership in the organization. They have this kind of belief because they believe that if they keep the data within their organization, it will be safer. All right. You also mentioned the budget. Do you mean the annual budget, or is it better with the on-premise systems? Yes, that's right. When you use platform, you also need to think about maintenance and subscription, and that require continuous budget. So it's not easy to get the budget approved because it takes more steps and processes. Okay, so Mr. Supakit, I agree with him. In my work, I also see the same issue with the regulation. And they also have a concern about the data, that the data must be kept in Thailand and not overseas. So that's quite a limitation. But the trend starts to improve as far as I can see. And I believe that at the policy making level, they just want to push for the cloud. But in my experience, installing and providing IT architecture in many public and private organizations, including insurance companies, they still have quite a belief. I mean, they still believe that on-premise is better with data leakage and also data retrieve. But I think this is a very good opportunity to share with you some more information because on the cloud, I mean, the cloud is also quite secure. For me, maybe let me start with the first question. Can I have the slide on the screen, please? Okay, so maybe it's about getting close to lunchtime, so I share with you a few menus. Let me compare very simple menus with our IT architecture. In my experience, for more than 20 years, when we started, long time ago, we created what we call spaghetti architect. You know, why spaghetti is tangling, is tingling, and it's complicated. It's, the data service here, the servers there, and when there's a new system coming in, sometimes you use Apache web server, sometimes you change your engine, sometimes you change to ISS. So there are so many complications. And the architect developed it, and things changed. And it's become a bit better. I can call it lasagna. It's stacked. It can be divided into several tiers. We started to have several tiers, and we also have API to help us connect. But the modern era, I believe that we should be what I call ravioli. If you know what ravioli means, it's a kind of Italian wonton. It's like a wonton. So we created nodes of application to make it more flexible to move around. So technically speaking, the current architecture is we try to turn it into nodes. Like these nodes, we can see that used quite extensively, like Docker and other systems. Like at the moment in the cloud system, it can be all of these kind of architecture. It doesn't mean that when you get on the cloud, there's no spaghetti. No, I have seen cloud architecture that looks like spaghetti many times actually. So speaking of the architecture, we need to understand what kind of architecture you want. And it's up to you if you want to make it homemade, and we call it on-premise, and the cloud is like you're having your food in a famous restaurant. And it's like you are dining out in a restaurant rather than having your food at home. But all in all, today, I believe that our architecture is more agile and more flexible. But in terms of regulators and policies, I believe that in my experience in the past couple of years, maybe as let me share with you an information from the policymaker. I'm unnamed policymaker. At the operational level, everybody just want to go to the cloud. But in terms of the policy, actually, many leaderships are actually interested. So I want to really invite our insurtechs and startups and insurtech technology companies. I know that everybody there want to go to the cloud, but in large size insurance company, I think we need to open our mind and try to turn our architecture into ravioli model and move it up onto the cloud. I think we can do that. Let me clarify about the ravioli. I think this is a very interesting analogy. Actually, it is how we turn it into a modular system, like one thing for backend and one thing for CRM, for example. Am I right? Yes, that's right. But when you look at one step further, we need to think about microservice, right? And I did many services to insurance company when they want to connect CRM system, like they want to create an online medical systems. That's a problem because maybe they want to connect it with the customer policy and the core insurance system is huge. And when we need to move it, we need to move the whole thing together. So it's not very easy to add a new service. But I also find many cases where they started implement this ravioli architecture, or let's call it microservice for now. So you know when there's one ravioli or one node, you don't have to patch the whole core system. You only have to patch the piece of a ravioli or just one node. So the speed is very good. We also had another experience using the microarchitecture. We could close the project within just a month. And during the patching, we don't have to patch the whole core insurance system, which is very good. But again, when you talk about ravioli, once again, you have to find a way to connect them. You know, have you ever found or encountered any challenge? I think today is much easier. The node management system, actually, there are many brands. Like you can use Kubernetes. Kubernetes can communicate like almost everything among themselves. And other architectures like API, like, there are certain standards of communication so they can communicate with each other. And the speed of rest area API, it used to be a bottleneck because the response was very slow in the past, but thanks to the internet and the intra-network system, today it's much faster. Which we used to have an experience with one organization they did something with vaccine. So we could patch within these nodes. We could deliver more than 300,000 transactions per second. And the system is very fast. So API is currently, it's a standard. Everybody is using it. And there is no bottleneck issue anymore. Now, what about inter-organizational? I know that in an organization, they use the same standard. Each node can communicate with the same well-synced data, but when you connect it outside to different organizations, sometimes the data is, how standardized is it? I think they use ASPI. It's a very good thing because when you think about the government sector, with the 4PO policy, many agencies already provide API for the private sector to connect with them. And it's very simple. Let's say if we want to connect with the Department of Administration, I can connect through an API. If I want to get economic data, so I can connect with the government agency, which is very interesting. We can also get more data from the government, including get the economic growth, like the value of tourism business and the accident trend, for example. We can use this API to connect with them. It's pretty much seamless now. But the connectivity is not an issue. It's not as bad as the architecture itself. Many insurance companies, they still use the lasagna pattern. They cannot move themselves to ravioli yet. Maybe it's because they are afraid. I don't think it's about the architecture. Sometimes they say that if you want to implement at the core insurance system, and the value is hundreds of million baht, and the old version was like a piece of lasagna, it's monolithic, and it's not very easy to change. And they also believe that it's not easy, but many places have been successful in migrating their system from the lasagna to ravioli slowly. You just add in pieces of ravioli in their lasagna on the plate. And they can provide service through the microservice. And the bulky core system is still there, but they can provide other services. So that's an example. Now, in my experience, insurance companies in Thailand, we are mostly lasagna. But I have a strong belief that we already shift to the cloud architecture and things are more flexible. So I would like to share a word today. For making infrastructure flexible, you must need to have this in mind. Always keep this in mind. Infrastructure as code, IAC. This is very important. Like in my company, because I also have many countries like in Myanmar and Vietnam and Thailand, and also our customers' company, I try to suggest them to use this. And what is IAC? So from now on, we don't need network engineer. I mean that we still need them, yes. But the infrastructure, has changed. The control and the infrastructure can be controlled by the development team. So when I develop a system, I can access through the console command to provision the Docker or VM by myself. And if we can do that, we can see that the infrastructure can be highly flexible by doing it this way. So let me share with you an example. Like for insurance company, I don't want to use their names today. So let me give you an example. There was one company, and I helped them, and today you can see this kind of taxi running around Bangkok, right? This is actually called CAP application. We help them to prepare their core infrastructure, and it works like Grab. I believe that everybody has a ride on it now. They used infrastructure as code architecture. It took us just a day to launch the system, and CAP changed their features every week, which is very interesting. And more importantly, CAP also have their own assembly line, so they have all the supply chain. Everything go through infrastructure as code. Today, a developer who is in charge, they don't really have infrastructure or network engineer. They only have dev team, and they only have 4 or 5 developers. And they configure the infrastructure, everything using the coding. They don't have to set the physical server. There's no physical server actually. And this is one example. Right. And do we have any question? So what is difference between this one and the infrastructure as a service or web services? Oh, IaaS is like this. You are using VM from your physical and move it up to the cloud, right? IaaS or infrastructure as a service. You can rent a cloud. You can use Amazon's cloud. You can use Google's cloud, and they will provision your VM on the cloud. But for infrastructure as code, you can write the command line. You can run automatic provisioning on VM. Like Amazon, for example. I want to build a VM. You need to log on into that UI and then click and choose your spec, right? But infrastructure as code, I can write it down the config line. When I want to do something in the code, it will be like a grid pipeline and create a VM right away. I don't have to do it myself. This is very important, and I think this is quite a game changer. It can make us work very fast. Now, you also talk about IaaS. There's IaaS and PaaS and SaaS, right? Like PaaS is a platform as a service. There's no machine, so we provide service through platform. Like we also have other like blah 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 as a service, and also Amazon also provide Lambda. The other one is SaaS as a service or software as a service. So you can use software up there. These 3 things have pros and cons. Like IaaS, I think it's the most expensive one. I have seen many people who wants to move to the cloud using IaaS. I think that's a wrong idea, because the value when you move it up onto the cloud, if you think about the cost for IaaS, it's like you buy the physical machine for 3 years. It's just right at the break-even year. So if you want to use it more than 3 years, you are not making much with the IaaS. But the biggest game changer is PaaS. When you use PaaS, the cost will drop by 200% because you don't have to bear the burden of IaaS. But the best of all is SaaS, just service. Like you want to use Faquet, for example, they also use software as a service system, right? Or you want to use online medical system, that's also SaaS, software as a service. Now, SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS, you can actually choose. When you think about cloud, cloud doesn't mean that you have to be Azure or Amazon cloud. There are many local cloud service providers in Thailand, and the quality is quite good. And sometimes you say that you want to create a private cloud. You create your own data center, but you can use the backbone from SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS and install in your data center. Many service providers actually provide the backbone software to help you manage. So that's why I say for insurance, if you are not comfortable with putting your data up onto the cloud, you say that you don't own it, right? In terms of architecture, you can still do that. You can build your own data center and turn your data center as a cloud service in itself. But the core system should be infrastructure as code. That's how you help your architect infrastructure flexible. Right, sir. And can I ask Kun Wasin about this too? Um, Actually, there are two things about infrastructure. And the first is the workflow automation and responding to requests to main functions, right? With the consumer's demand. But on the other hand, we also have the infrastructure for data analysis. You want to get all of these data for analysis to accompany business decision. But in this way, you need to set up your infrastructure in certain way where the business analyst can easily access the data with a large amount of data without going through the IT system. So what is the current setup for this kind of system today and how things are like today? System setup. So from what I can see, many organizations already started to provide many kinds of data like this for this purpose. Like when they want to prepare the data backbone for distribution and provide the API or open API, each organization, if they want to develop their own software, mostly they will think about the API first so they can connect with other systems. And about using data, at this point, many places procure or get offer for using data science to help them visualize the data, to help them making decision, maybe using Power BI or other analytical softwares. That is what I see quite often. But in many organizations, I believe that they started using Power BI and other visualization tools more often nowadays. Yes. Because most organizations started to realize that data is very important. Data is a very highly valuable resource. If they can use the data in many ways, including using data with their partner and even data monetization, or using the data to help customizing the customer behavior analysis and to help them predict the future trend. That's why they are into it. All right, sir. And do you have any recommendation besides of Power BI? Have you seen any other platform used by your clients? Some of the most popular ones are TensorFlow, for example, because Data Studio and AWS QuickScience or Scikit-learn, for example. Mr. Supakit, do you like to add anything? Let me put it this way. For data science, this is one of the top hit these few years. In the past few years, most of my jobs are into this data thing. But when people talk about data, they think about customer segmentation and they think about data comparison so they can compare their sales and they can connect it through API. But I still see people use AI. I hardly see people use AI technically. But today, data science technology is much more beyond that. We can do what we call data pipeline. Normally, when you work, you normally using the data only from just a period of time to accompany analysis. Let's say you took a data from 2 to 4 years, for example. But the point is, each time period might show you certain characteristics or changes. Like in the past 2 years, we got COVID, right? But if you use the data from 4 years ago, you cannot use that for analysis because the data behavior has changed. So lately, I see that many companies start using what we call data pipeline. They don't want just to learn from a fixed set of data. They allow the data to feed into the system all the time and to feed into the learning model. So the model will become partly adaptive and it works extremely fast. We can capture the behavior within just, a couple months and we can adjust our strategy accordingly. So I highly recommend this. Have you seen that in Thai organization? Yes, in Thailand, actually, many places. They feed the data into the system in real time and they just accompany with the modeling. And once you get the model, you can export the model to the endpoint and the back office service can connect with the endpoint to process the model and get the result right away. But is there any human interference, or is there people who read the result and try to make sense of the result? All right, this is quite important. I think we need the scientists. They need to see these results and reevaluate maybe once a month to benchmark, to see whether if this model or this new pipeline works properly. But rather than using the old-fashioned model, like using like 100% data scientists, today it has become more automated. The pipeline can feed the data in, and the scientist can random check to verify. I think that's the trend. But I think there's a danger for data science and building this kind of model. I think that the data that you use to build it, it creates a certain kind of model and then it will feed into itself. And maybe the model is going to be biased. That's possible. Right at the moment, we also have what we call Machine Learning Studio. This is also under Microsoft. In the past, for example, if we want to create a model, I may need to match the model one by one and to find out its accuracy. At the moment, like ML2, we don't write Python or R language anymore. It's drag and drop workflow. Now, the point is, when you want to create a data pipeline model, you can create a flow to check whether if the model that they have been applying, how good is its accuracy. We call this auto ML. So when we use this kind of machine, so let's say we have 70 models, it will compare all 70 models to check if the accuracy is okay or not. And once you find out that the model gives you high accuracy, that's okay. So we can add it into the data pipeline workflow and to inform the data scientists too, so they can confirm the new model application and into the training. All of this can be automated. And we actually have implemented this kind of thing to many of our clients, and it is very helpful. Like in the past 2 years, once data science becomes a big hit, we are running out of data scientists. But if we want people to work with Python and R, it takes time. It takes too long. Today, we have many data science tools. Like I call it low-code data science. As long as you understand the modeling, you can work it. You can work it out. You can use it in your processes. It's very helpful. Do you mean 70 models? Are you running each model against each other to check the result, whether if it's biased or not? Yes, precisely. Yes. But there are still limitations. You need to look at the data behavior because unless everybody is going to do a data pipeline. So before you get to the data pipeline, you need to make sure that you see the trend or you see some seasonal behavior for your data. I mean, this kind of data, like seasonal data, you can use time series. There's only a few things that you can apply. But if your data is very complicated, you cannot really do pipeline. Let me remind you, you need to use other more in-depth ML. But again, today is much easier. Right. And for business analysts, besides of visualization tools, do they need to use R or Python language? Coding, yes, it's pretty popular today, but next year, many companies start using this low-code data science. In the future, you may not need R or Python as long as you have the knowledge. You know how to use the model. It will give you the result from the model that you apply. I find that it's much faster. In the past, you need 5 data science to create a model because they need to slowly apply the model one by one. But after we have switched to auto ML, we hardly need a data science. And it will give you the engine and you can run your dataset automatically and get the result automatically. Which platform are you using, sir? I have to say that this is pretty much biased because we are Microsoft's partner, so the most frequent one is Azure ML, which is their machine learning. And they also provide us with a complete toolset. But actually, we also use TensorFlow. Actually, we use many brands. TensorFlow has its own strength. And we need to choose the right one. But you want automate workflow, I use Azure. What about Kun Wasin? What about your customers? Are they using the same platform? All right, mostly they use big brand platform, yes. But I see a good mix. It depends on their preference, or maybe they are more suitable to certain type of software. I see quite often, like what Supakit said. I also agree with using AI to help with the modeling and to help you calibrate because I can see that most financial tech use the same system to help them analyze their customer for loan and also to connect with the financial data. Maybe you need the machine learning, which have to do its work almost in real time, at least almost every day. Uh, Let me ask you another question before we open for Q&A. One of the most popular things today is blockchain, and it is a different kind of IT infrastructure that we call decentralized infrastructure. I would love to know that today, what kind of infrastructure are there, like decentralized, centralized, or distributed, and anything else? And how do you decide on what to use, and which is the most popular one among organizations you have seen? Mr. Wasin, please. All right, and most organizations use distributed architecture. They want to distribute their data in many places, but they still choose to control the data by themselves because it's about data security, it's about the system, and they just want everything to be connected and they can have data backup or they can retrieve the data and they can keep record of everything. So those are their reasons. But for the centralized system of blockchain, this is another up and coming trend. I started to see that with many companies, especially in financial companies or insurtech companies. And we started to see letter of guarantee from the blockchain system. And I have seen many projects which will come this year. What about Mr. Supakit? What do you think? Centralized is all database is centralized in one place. There is no connection. Okay. Decentralized is dividing your database into maybe by the geographical feature, maybe you have different data center or different physical machine to help reducing the load. And the last one is distributed. Distributed is for each node, it contains its own data and is synchronized with each other. Now let me talk a bit more about distributed model. It became very popular because of blockchain, and the blockchain have been used in Bitcoin. That's why it's popular. But the distributed concept has been here for a long time, and actually it has been used for a long time. But how come we hardly see the distributed model, especially for business application? So let me remind you about business application. This one is not blockchain, right? Because there are limitations, especially for data synchronization. It cannot really handle big size of data very well at the moment. But in the future, if we can solve the problem with the data amount, I believe that distributed model will become much more popular. And once we have the distributed model, what comes next is, like at the moment, we might see an incident where the hospitals allow you to book for your vaccine. And there are certain dates where you book for the vaccine. And on the opening date, everybody just flock into maybe millions of 2 millions per second entry. The traditional database, including centralized or decentralized database, they could not handle such load, like with millions of entry. And because it creates a big database bottleneck. So I believe that in the future, once we become more digital society, I would say distributed model will become more popular. So please do not forget that distributed is not just for Bitcoin or blockchain. Actually, there are many distributed models we see today. All right, the advantage of the distributed model is about secure stability and safety, isn't it? Yes, if you use it for blockchain, for example. But we have run our test. We use the distributed architecture in the business application, and we found that it actually increased the transaction per second by quite a lot. So it's actually, yes, it really works. Yes, it complements each other, yes. So it's not just security or reliability. I think the performance is actually very good. And we can do what we call database as a code. It can be patched on the same node, just like what I said earlier. But this is more advanced Laviori. Like you can insert itself or the database in itself, so the speed is very good. They all need to be synced? Yes, yes. all of them need to be synced, right? Yes. With the current technology, we can do that, and there are certain processes to synchronize all of these data to allow all the nodes to talk to each other faster. Yes, that's the future. I mean, the computing power is not as much as Bitcoin, right? It's not that consuming. I think that's quite different. I mean, it's a different thing. Bitcoin is about the ledger and token verification, for example. But for in terms of computing power, I think it's pretty much different. Okay, so it's not. I mean, it's not just like blockchain precisely. Yes, it's not like that precisely. Okay, so this thing and the Bitcoin thing is different thing, but you mean it's the same idea, right? Yes, it's the same idea. Okay, sir. Now, let me move to the question from our audience. Maybe let us get the question from the floor now. We have a question from Zoom about data security and privacy and customers' need. Actually, these are the major consideration for insurance business today. But again, as we are migrating to the cloud more and more and living on-premise and data center model, do you have any best practice in protecting customer data and data privacy and data security? Can we start with Kun Vasin? All right, for data, data is, it receives a lot of interest in Thailand. Like, for example, the SMS spamming issue that we have heard from the telecom authority, as you have heard the news. So data policy and PDPA commitment, I have seen many companies started their data governance model. And as a consultant, we also helped our customers to help them manage the data, to create the data lake, data flow, and to help them develop their personal data management system in the organization. More importantly, we also need to make sure that the system is compliant with ISO like 27001, for example, like the NIST privacy frameworks and etc. These things will help securing their customers' data and to provide the right authorization system according to the law. And what about Kun Supakit? This is the most popular question, like PDPA, and in Thailand, you know that the penalty is quite high if any of this data is leaked. But all right, maybe I am more gearing towards the service. So when we start talking about PDPA and when the regulation started, we found many cloud service providers who have automated system. I really want to call it security as a service, and I tried this system and it worked very nicely. Like PDPR, for example, when you have a sensitive information, let's say, you need to declare, right? If you do that through human system, you need people to check the data, or somebody need to tell you that, okay, with this kind of database, you need to do this kind of masking or different kind of protections. But we have implemented a system that we call security as the service on the cloud. The good thing is you can choose all the compliance system in the world. Like, doesn't matter if it's PDPA or ISO 27000. And this system will search all database that you have, all the fields, and then help you classify your data. It can point out the column down to the column level. And this is quite cool. I have tried that with my own company. I was surprised. I was so surprised. It found something to the point where it told my developer who didn't mark the address field. And in the end, my developer, he incorrectly filled in it. Actually, he didn't fill that information. He created another field called credit card, and the security system also found that out. And it showed us that this place has a risk. Maybe your data privacy is compromised there. So I really like the automated system. But it's still Azure. Yes, we are still using Azure based. But what do you think about like other platforms or other companies like new players in the US stock exchange? Maybe it's not my field of expertise, but I can see the trend. The major players are trying to do more of this, and not just PDPR. In PDPR, we control our own data, right? In the future, it will be more like the source quality, for example. Well, like source quality is fully automated. You can do pipeline and you can throw it into the automated source security. I think pen test, for example, in the future, it will be automated. So in the future, it will be more robotics and will be less human error. Maybe that's the reason too. As we are in the insurtech business, we need to adapt and we need to catch up with the trend because technical skills in Thailand is quite scarce. We don't really have enough talents. So we need to use automation system to support us. But I think that's an interesting point because there are two companies who works in data security, Faquet and Techsauce, which is listed in the US stock market, and they are in security business. I am not sure if it's the same or different from other cloud or Azure. I think that's the trend. These kind of companies are like a must. In the past, we didn't need that. We can hide them when you want to improve your security, but today it is already a must because hackers are very good and there are more hackers and they do it every day. So yes, and you have to iterate that it's not once for all. Yes, true. And security also need a good network. Today, with the new hacking technique, without the right network, like I already mentioned, a few companies, I think they know that today there are trends in data violation and they can release a new patch quite quickly to respond to that. Okay, so before we are running out of time, can you leave some last remarks before we end? Maybe Kun Wasin? About maybe the IT architecture. We have seen a huge progress in the IT architecture, but still lag behind is the people digital mindset. Many people in the organizations are still concerned about using technology. They are afraid that they might be disrupted. They don't know where they stand after AI get into their system. And that creates lots of conflicts between the leadership and also the employees. So I just want everybody to realize, take this concern and try to develop as the technology are coming in today and in the future. And I think the concern is valid, sir. I mean, AI might replace people. So what do you think about that, Kun Wasin? Actually, one day people need to transfer yourself into something more complicated or something that require more skill sets. AI will, at the moment, AI can complete all routine tasks and AI help you with the calculation, like something with a clear formula or function. It works very well, but still, people need to move on to something more complicated or more difficult. Mr. Supakit, sir. So I think don't be afraid of it. We have lower population birth rate, right? And AI will replace that, I'm sure. But that's one thing that I think worth considering. Have you heard about this person? He is a science writer, Isaac Asimov, and he wrote a story called Foundation. He talked about this system in his book, and he really predicted our society. We will see a new kind of society once AI coexists with people. But however, about architecture, I want to go back to my Italian food once again. So I think we are getting hungry now. I want you to think about your architecture. Think ravioli. Don't worry if ravioli might be homemade or might be a store-bought. It can be either on-premise or on-cloud. It doesn't matter. But again, when you think about your architecture, try to make it as ravioli as possible. Because there you will get more flexibility and then you can handle new technologies. Because once your data is in ravioli, you don't have to tear the whole structure down. You just move one ravioli at a time. You have a problem with the payment system, you just patch that system. You don't have to patch the whole core system. As you mentioned about AI and future, I want to recommend another book called AI Superpower from Kai Puri. Have you seen this book before? No, not yet. Maybe I need to check it out. He's an AI scientist. He's a Chinese, an AI scientist, but he went to the US 30 years ago, and he talked about AI might affect the political superpower and even the future of human being. How the future work looks like, because AI will replace a lot of routine work, and they did a very good job already. And he got cancer, and after that because he worked too hard, and after that he found that, he said that maybe human is not born to work anymore. And it started to make me realize that working too hard is more about industrialization. Maybe we have arrived at an AI age, and there, human is there just to reap the benefits and just enjoy life more than what we are doing today. Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. It's a bit, it goes beyond the technical thing. It's pretty much philosophical now. Why do we born? Just like that. Yeah, and we can enjoy more life. Yes. That would be great, right? I would love that. Yeah, I would love that too. And I just want to go to the beach now. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So that concludes this session. And we are running out of time now. So actually, this is a very interesting session. So we have talked about so many things about like IT infrastructures and also PDPR and data security and about ravioli infrastructure and modular infrastructures and how can you make it easier to connect with each other. I think this session is really, really complete with all the things we need to talk about the architecture. So thank you so much for both of our guest speakers, Kun Supakit and Kubasin. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.